Hello and welcome back to Geek and Speak, the Geek and Seek podcast. Today, we are having a news-dedicated episode because I was at MagicCon Vegas. It was a blast, but we got a ton of new information, a ton of new sets, stuff we got to talk about, so that's where we're dedicating this entire episode to. Joining with me today is Preston. Preston, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. There's a lot of stuff to talk about with the news this time, and some of it's pretty good, some of it's not so much.
Yeah, well said. We also have our podcast editor, Jason. How's it going, Jason?
Going fantastic. As you can see, I am wearing my Lions jersey. This video is being recorded on Saturday, so it's the day before the actual game. But just know that I predicted that we would beat the Packers by 20 points. So, just saying I kind of called it. Unless I was totally wrong and we didn't beat them by 20 points. But I'm going out on a limb and saying I called it.
Oh, Jason, you just jinxed it. Everyone's going to laugh and leave hateful comments about the Lions now. And then, hi.
No one would ever do that.
And then, hi, I'm your host, Morgan. I'm also doing pretty Gucci gang. I agree with Preston that some of this news is super exciting and some of it is cringe. But we'll get into the nitty-gritty details. If you would like to support the show and all the other stuff we are doing here at Geek and Seek, you can do all the YouTube algorithm stuff, that being liking the video, leaving comments, subscribing if you're not subscribed already, and checking out all of our other videos. We have lots of other podcast episodes. Most of them are not time sensitive like this one, so you can watch them and still get something out of them. And then we also have Commander gameplay, other stuff like that. And then if you would like to go the extra mile, you can head over to patreon.com/geekandseek YouTube. That's the best way to directly support us. And coming pretty soon, making good progress on it, we have a Patreon exclusive episode of our Commander gameplay that's going to be available to Patreons only. So if you want in on that, that's where you get that. And then if you want to keep the conversation going outside of the comment section, you can also find a link to our Discord in the description of this video. Favorite comment, this is from last week's podcast episode where we were talking about spooky magic cards as a Halloween special. And this is from The Trinket Mage, great YouTube channel. You should check it out. Mostly does video essays, also has a podcast, great channel. Says, y'all didn't list any scary cards like Farewell or Expropriate. And you know what? Not what we were going for, but I like where your head's at. So yeah, it's good. Have you guys?
How was MagicCon?
It was great. It was a lot of fun. It was my second MagicCon I had gone to. I went in, I think 3 days early before the con just to hang out with the MTG Goldfish guys. I've been working with them for a little over a year now, so it was nice to actually hang out with them and stuff like that. And then the con itself was great. I got to sign some cards, take some pictures with fans, play some games with fans, and got to watch the cosplay contest, which was really fun, and meet some really interesting people. I have some things I would like to tell you guys about the con that I feel like is not appropriate to say out loud in public, so I will tell those stories later. And Vegas food never misses. I didn't have a bad meal the entire time I was there, so.
That's the one thing I like. I've only been to Vegas twice, but that's what I've experienced both times. Is that the food there is just fantastic every single time. Quick question: who won the cosplay contest, and how good was their Liliana costume?
I don't remember who won because I had to get to a meet and greet. But I watched the first. I watched all the walking. I didn't watch the part where they announced who won each category because they had 4 or 5 different categories for winners. I didn't watch that part, but I watched all the stuff where people were. Actually, you know what? It was the Liliana person, right? I think it was Liliana because it was. Or no, it was. I
didn't know that. I just
no, it wasn't Liliana. It was. I think it's Gisa, the black creature who cares about zombies. I think it was her. She had a shovel, and she had this thing that she could flip up to make it look like there were zombies following her around. It was super cool.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, there's some really good cosplays. I like that stuff. I've never done cosplay.
I want to do a Yargle and Matani.
Yeah, that would be the best.
A Multani one would be absolutely nuts. How do you even get that into the convention?
Oh, but it would be really funny. But that's MagicCon Vegas. If I got to meet you there, that was great. Hope to see you next year. I plan on going every year. Hopefully get into a couple other ones. MagicCon Chicago is in a few months. That's in driving distance for me, so might go to that. Not sure. But yeah. All right. Let's head into the news. This first bit of news should be a pretty quick one, but I think it has some realistic implications. So this is that MSRP is coming back with the release of Foundations. We'll talk about Foundations here in a minute. But for the last few years, what does MSRP stand for? Market Suggested Retail Price. I think that's what it is, and that hasn't been on Magic the Gathering cards in a few years. So basically what could happen is that we are pricing our product, our sealed product, based on what we remember sealed product selling for, and then vendors are able to price gouge and stuff like that. But it's coming back with Foundations. So now we specifically will know what Wizards is intending to sell things for, which has a few implications. But yeah, Jason.
Quick, it's manufacturer suggested retail
That's
price.
So overall, I think ultimately that might not matter at all. Bringing that back might not matter at all. People might still have to mark things up because of scarcity and whatnot. But the idea of making it easier to say, hey, these are supposed to be the normal price things. Hey, this is supposed to be the more luxury item things. Make it more obvious what's what. And then also, I think it'll be harder for people to get away with marking stuff up if it's obvious what it's supposed to sell for. But what do you guys think about that change?
I think that it's probably for the best, because then people are going to know what Wizards thinks that their product is valued at. And so when you go to a game store and you see how much they're selling it for, you know whether they're actually like trying to rip you off or something like that. I've had issues with game stores, and I wouldn't say most of the time it's sealed product. Most of the time it's like singles that, like, I've seen singles that you could buy on TCG for like 45 cents that game stores are selling for $7, and it's just ridiculous. But I do think that it's going to be harder for them to do that with sealed product, which I think is very consumer friendly.
Yeah, this is not important for us because we've been in this long enough. We typically know what something is worth and whether or not it's a good deal. This is good for people who are just starting stuff and don't really know what stuff should be costing them. And more importantly, it's important for family members buying stuff for Christmas. That's why you want
True.
MSRPs on these kind of products. When your grandmother buys you a $20 pre-con that Walmart's selling for $60, you feel bad for Grammy. That's not cool. She doesn't know what she's doing. She just wants to give little Justin something cool. So yes, this is very important to have on your product if you were selling something.
Yeah. So like I said, I believe they're bringing that back with Foundations. Foundations is our next piece of news, which is a pretty cool set. It's actually coming out in just a couple weeks. Come back in a couple weeks on our podcast. We'll talk about our favorite new cards from that set. But Foundations is similar to a core set. If you guys remember core sets, it's about half reprints and half new cards, roughly. And it's supposed to be a little bit easier for onboarding. It's supposed to be mostly user-friendly cards, while still having some high-power stuff and interesting new cards to still be interesting to already established players, but it's supposed to be a nice entry point to new players. The interesting part about this set is that it's supposed to be the hub for standard entry point for the next several years. They said that Foundation. So right now, we recently moved from 2-year standard rotation to 3-year standard rotation, so your cards are legal for longer. But this set specifically is going to be legal for at least 5 years. And if that goes well, they said they might let it be standard legal for longer. So the idea is that if you just are into collecting this one set, you have a little bit of a foundation, hence the name, for standard for the next several years, surviving the next, I think, 2 rotations, which is super nice. And it's going to have all the normal stuff that you would expect as far as like booster packs. I think there's collector packs, no commander precons for this set. And then also, yes, I agree. And then there's also a cool new product that is a starter collection. It's going for about $60. It's going to have 350 cards from the sets, as well as a few set boosters. It's going to have some full art lands. And it's supposed to be like, hey, you don't have a collection for standard yet. Buy this. This is a great start. I feel like $60 is a fair price for what it is. What do you guys think about Foundations?
I think it's a great idea. I think this is a good way to get people back into Standard because it's been dying for 5 years now or something. So getting people actually interested in playing it again, letting people have decks that will stay good for a long time is a great idea, but still having the regular sets rotate so like it's not getting too stale. It's a good mixture. And I really love the $60 starter collection. It's like the deck builders toolkits they used to do, but a much better value. So I'm really happy with this for the most part.
I think that it's an incredible thing for the game. Not even just for Standard. I think that it's a really good thing for many formats, but for Standard specifically, what gets me really excited about this is that this is potentially a set that is going to be legal for a really, really, really long time. My biggest problem with Standard has always been, your cards, they rotate out and then you have to like spend a bunch of money every time a new set comes out, just to keep up with the format and everything like that. So, I think that adding a set that could be legal for a really long time is going to be very beneficial for players. It's going to be beneficial for players' wallets. And I mean, just looking at the set, there's enough cards that are interesting and fun that it's not like you're just throwing a bunch of garbage cards together into a deck to make something playable that's, just so you don't have to spend a ton of money on the next Standard set that comes out. And I mean, the $60 starter collection, 350 cards, I've never seen anything like that before. That's just an insane amount of value. $60 for 350 cards. That's so good. It just really seems to be a player positive move by Wizards. And I'm honestly really happy about it. It's not something that I thought they would have done.
Preston's comparison Oh, go ahead, Preston.
I was going to say, the only thing that I'm a little worried about is if they don't keep it printed. Like, if they do one printing of it, then it just kind of falls off. I think that'll defeat the purpose and stuff will start getting too expensive for people. That's the only thing that might be a problem, but if they do multiple printings, then it should be totally fine.
And I think they will. I think it is the norm that Standard legal sets are like they stay in print, unless they're like just complete duds. If they're selling, they keep printing it for the entire legality of Standard for it. So I think we're probably in the clear for that. Preston's comparison to the starter kits, I think, is great. If you don't remember starter kits, actually, the very first Magic thing I ever bought was a deck builder's toolkit. They were like $20 packs that you could buy, like Walmart and Target and stuff. And it would come with like 3 to 6 packs of Standard legal sets, a handful of lands, and a handful of just like bulk of that Standard legal. And they weren't great at as far as like building real decks, but it was a decent way for only $20 to get some cards in your hand and start looking at what is happening right now in Standard, as well as just getting some cards in your hand to start messing around with and getting the idea of deck building. So it is noteworthy that this is 3 times the price, but from what I can tell, this is a way better value. Like, you're actually like getting like playable cards. And I think my favorite thing about Foundations is I think they really hit the mark on good reprints as well as good new cards that are also interesting to already established players. Like, a lot of these new cards are actually interesting. Again, come back in a couple of weeks. We'll talk about some of those cards on the podcast. But the reprints are like, even if they're not like valuable reprints, they're just like cards we just like to play. For example, Omniscience is just it's just a baller card, right? I don't know how much it is, probably like $10 or something. So it's a decent reprint. But the fact that it's going to be Standard legal for the next 5 years, oh man, I'm excited to see someone try to break it. Doubling Season specifically, very expensive card, getting reprinted in a Standard legal set. Probably not going to be Standard playable, but it's a card that people really like and it's expensive. And this should lower the price a lot. And then we have like Solemn Simulacrum, which is just a Commander classic. I think it's possible it's going to get played in Standard. And then there's a lot of elf support, and tribal decks just haven't been that good in standard for a while, outside of like lizards. Lizards is a pretty good deck, but we don't get a ton of typal decks in standard anymore. This is a great way to kind of give some tribal decks some love, is make elves good again, and people love elves. So I think just all round Foundations is just epic. I'm so hype for Foundations.
Yeah, I think another thing that I like is a lot of just like the fun sorcery type cards and instant cards that are going to get reprinted in this. Like, one card that I'm really excited is getting reprinted is an Offer You Can't Refuse, because I think it's a really good counterspell. I think it's a really balanced counterspell, and it's not quite as big of a feel bad counterspell. A fun card, just a fun card that I enjoy, is Bake Into a Pie. You just destroy a creature and you make a food token. You just turn it into a pie.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's just fantastic.
And Offer You Can't Refuse is also not a terrible reprint, because even though it's like an uncommon from just a couple years ago, it's still like $4 or something, because people actually play it. Like, it's actually a card that gets play. So that it gained like a standard reprint is like actually like for an uncommon slot, that's pretty good. It's a little bit of value in your uncommon slot.
There was one more. I can't even think of the name of it now. I just saw it. I talked to you guys about it before we started recording. I'm scrolling through. I'll find it here in just a moment. Here we go. Back into... Oh, yeah. Stroke of Midnight. I think Stroke of Midnight is a huge reprint, because that was only what...
Wait, the
one of the Innistrad sets?
No. The Wilds of Eldraine 3-mana destroy something, they get a 1/1. That one? Is that the one you're talking about?
Destroy a non-land permanent.
It's still standard legal, actually, even without the.
But I'm saying it's a reprint.
Yeah. Well,
like, it's just
it'll mean
a
that
card
it'll
that I
be
like
legal
playing.
and standard for a lot longer, because that's a set that it probably has like a limit to how much staying power it could have otherwise. So maybe it's relevant. Have you actually ever played that card? Because I remember I made a video about that.
I run it in a bunch of my white decks. Stroke of Midnight is so good. It destroys a non-land permanent. It's Beast Within, but they get a smaller creature
that can be skull clamped.
Well, Beast Within can destroy lands,
and that's relevant sometimes. Sometimes I got to get rid of Jason's
Sometimes it
Cabal
is
Coffers,
relevant.
So
one of them, yes. But likely, I could probably get it back.
Yes, that is the problem with land decks. Any final thoughts on Foundations before we get to some less epic news?
I just think that it's a fun way. I just like that it's kind of core set, because I miss the core sets. The core sets had really good cards. When I really first started to get into Commander, core sets was something that helped me kind of like get a start to it. Like, I pulled an Omniscience from, what was that, core 19?
I think so.
Is that when that got
I think so.
Yes. So, and that was one of my strongest cards that I had pulled, and it went into my Tatiova deck. So, I like the core sets because it allows you to get into it, and you can use those cards in many different formats. So I like that this is something that they're doing. Also, I think that there's a lot of, you could not only just do it as like Foundations, but I could see them doing in the future like Foundations 2, or like, just kind of keeping it like a series kind of like that, or maybe do like a Foundations like Masters set or something of that sort.
Yeah, obviously I haven't gone through all 570 cards of the set, but from what I've looked at so far, it seems like a very healthy power level for standard. Like, there's no Okos or Nadus running around in here from what I could tell, so I'm very positive and hopeful about what this will do for the game for a couple years.
Well, I will say that I think it is pushing the envelope for power level in standard, because we have like Day of Judgment Gain reprinted, and for a long time they didn't really do 4-mana Wraths. So And then we also have like Lion War Elves, which for a long time they said like 1 mana dorks are too good. So now they're kind of like rolling that back and saying like, okay, we are going to let these things be in standard, and not only just be reprinted in standard, they're also saying like for a long time now they're going to be reprinted in standard. So I actually think they're experimenting with pushing the power level of standard. The thing is though, is I'm okay with standard getting a little bit stronger if that also means that the decks are still fun, if the format is still fun. That's what matters to me, because I've been really enjoying standard the last few years, and the last like year specifically, it's just been like a mid-range fest until like a few months ago we got some aggro decks, but for a long time it was just like fair mid-range decks against fair mid-range decks, and it's like that's fun, but like we could try some other things, right? So I'm really excited for
Where's
Foundation.
the spice?
Yeah,
we needed some spice.
I was talking about cards that were strong outside of standard that were like kind of ruining the set for standard players. That's what I was worried about. But as far as I can tell, there's not a whole lot of that.
Also, Liliana the Dreadhorde is being reprinted, and
it's a good reprint. All right, let's head into some less epic news. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I want to make sure that we get the gut reaction, because it was really funny at MagicCon when they did the panel where they announced this. We are getting a Spongebob secret lair. That's it. That's the news. It's coming next year. Outside of that, we don't really have any information, at least as of the recording. But it was so funny because I was like I was on the floor where it happened, where they had the panel where they announced this. And you can actually kind of hear this on the video that they have on the official YouTube channel, because there's like some people who are just like hype about SpongeBob, right? Like a lot of the younger people who are in Magic are the people who grew up with SpongeBob, so like people our age. So there's like some people who are like, whoa, SpongeBob! And then there's a bunch of people who are like very confused. They're very confused. I didn't hear a lot of anger. Like people weren't like booing or anything, but there was just like a genuine like, what is happening going on? And we've had some weird secret layers. We've had some weird universes beyond. Preston and I were talking about this before recording, that we prefer when our universes beyond still feel like, okay, it's not that far of a stretch for Magic. SpongeBob feels like a stretch. So what is your guys' gut reaction?
It doesn't even feel like Magic. It doesn't feel like Magic. I don't... I need to see what the cards are, and maybe that'll change my mind a little bit, but I doubt it. I just don't understand why... It feels like Wizards is trying to please everyone, and you can't please everyone. That's not going to happen. And so, like, you know, I feel like this is just, like, irritating players more than it is making players excited. And I don't like when they do that. I don't like when a lot of people are just like, well, I don't understand why this happened. It makes me want to play the game even less now. That's just not good for the format. I think that it's good that it's just a secret layer. You know, a full, like, SpongeBob or, like, a full, like, Nickelodeon type set would be terrible.
Whoa, hold on. Don't do my boy Jimmy Neutron dirty like that, okay?
A Goddard card would actually maybe be pretty sick. But still, I stand by it. I just don't think that it's necessary, and I'm not super excited for it. But maybe after seeing the cards, maybe I'll change my mind. I don't know.
If it's just reprints with like new names or like art, I don't typically care. But if it's a genuinely new card, that's when I have the problems with it. Because if it's genuinely playable and my otherwise fully Magic set needs one SpongeBob card, that's gonna feel bad. Like I don't want that.
So here's the funny thing, is that
that's my worry.
Whenever they've made these like secret layer exclusive cards, the ones that are not reprints, they are eternal legal. So they're legal in Commander, they're legal in Legacy, they're legal in Vintage. And sometimes that matters. Like some of them are really good. Like, do you remember Rick Grimes, the Walking Dead one? Actually played in Legacy. It's actually played in Legacy. And Saffron Olive and I were talking about this when they made the announcement. We were like, okay, it's probably just going to be reskins, But can you imagine how hilarious it would be if SpongeBob SquarePants or like a Squidward card or something was accidentally too good and it became like a tier legacy deck? Like, that would be hilarious.
Don't say that.
Oh my god.
It'd be so funny.
I'm ready.
That'll be jellyfishing, probably.
So here's the thing.
What does the Krabby Patty do?
I think the Krabby Patty is a food token.
It's
a food token.
Or it's a food artifact. Well, it's not a token, but it's an artifact.
I think maybe so. If they do reprints,
they just make food tokens with Krabby Patties on them.
I think if it's actually reprints, I think the most likely thing is that it's probably something that makes foods. Like you could that way you could have your SpongeBob in there, you can have your Squid, because they all work at the same place, right? And then maybe at least one of those cards makes food tokens, so then you can have the food
Mr.
token.
Krabs makes money for treasures.
Yeah. Oh, he's the Academy manufacturer. Yeah. And then your food token can just be the Krabby Patty, because then also they synergize. You can all play them in the same deck if you wanted to, which would be nice. So that makes sense. But it's when you get into like the abstract of like, okay, but what specific card? That's where I get nervous. Like, what specific card would you say we could reprint this as SpongeBob and it makes sense? That's where I get concerned. I think at least the character cards have a decent chance of just being like actual new cards. Because we saw this like with the Marvel Secret Layers that are coming out soon. Like, there are some reprints that are just reskins, but there's also just some new cards. And I think that's actually what we're probably going to see. And that's what has me worried, because I don't want Plankton to destroy us in Legacy. All right. So that's what I'm worried about. So I don't know.
So this is just something I thought of that was funny. I want there to be some sort of like sorcery, like maybe like a storm card, and it's Plankton, and it's that scene where, like, you know, he ends up like breaking it or like getting into the Krusty Krab, and then he like is like, give me the Krabby Patty formula or else, and then Krabs is like, or what? And I just needed to be like, I needed the card to be called, I don't know, I never thought I'd get this far.
I mean, there's definitely a lot you can play with, right? Like the show's been on for so long. There's so many iconic scenes and memes. Like, there's tons of material to make it work. But the better
check under the tray.
Huh?
Did you check under the tray?
Check under the tray.
That's one of my favorite things. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I haven't seen that one.
So I forget what. There's an episode where SpongeBob gets a horse. It's a seahorse. And it's in the kitchen with him, and he makes an order, and he sets it up on the thing for Squidward to grab, and the horse eats it. And then Squidward goes to grab it. He goes, "SpongeBob, where's my order?" And he goes, "Did you check under the tray?" And Squidward goes, "Oh, no, I didn't. Sorry." And he lifts the tray up. Like, why? Why would it be under there?
Okay, so the question here is, how far do they take it? Right? Like, I think there's some that we could argue aren't that far of a stretch. Like Stranger Things and like Doctor Who are like, I think they kind of push the boundary of like, that's a little outside of what I would expect, but I could see the jump. And then we have like ones that are obviously safe, like Lord of the Rings. But then like this is obviously like Fortnite levels of like, what the hell? So do you think this is Wizards testing the water to see how far they can get away with it? Or like, what do you guys think? Like, why?
So.
Why do this?
I think that's what it is. To me, the only way to do this, where everybody like actually is fine with it, is if it's really just like an entire meme set. Like it's just like reprints that got new skins, and you just look at it and you laugh because of the card that it is and what they did to it as far as like the art and the context of like what is going on. But like, if they're not doing that and they're like actually making new cards that are SpongeBob themed, that's really them just being like, you know, how much can we do before we annoy people so much that they stop playing our game? And I just don't like that. Don't use my level of annoyance as a meter to determine what products you will and won't make and what you will and won't sell. That doesn't feel good.
Well, and whenever people make those arguments, Wizard says, well, hey, it was a great selling Secret Lair. Hey, it was a great selling set. So, I mean, you vote with your wallets, guys. Like, that's how you do this. And the problem is that Secret Lairs are limited print run again, right? So they'll sell out probably no matter what because people will scalp them. But so maybe it doesn't apply to SpongeBob specifically, but just in general, when they do Universes Beyond, Secret Lairs, sets, whatever, if it's something you don't want, just don't buy it. Just don't buy it. And that will be a sign to Wizards that that's just not the right direction. You had said that, like, don't test my tolerance. They have to, right? Because the idea is that these Universes Beyonds are pulling in new players, right? The question is, though, because there are some number of new players that are going to be brought into the game, and then there's some old players who get fed up with it and leave the game. The question is, can that balance out to where Magic is still growing? Because my other concern is that, yeah, Universes Beyond is going to bring in new players, but do those new players stick around? Or are they just like, oh, I like the Marvel set, so I'm going to buy some Marvel cards, and then they play for a while, and then they leave. I had a friend who did that with Warhammer. He was a Warhammer fan, so he got the Warhammer decks. He learned how to play Magic. Doesn't really play anymore. So in that case, does bringing in the new players even matter if all the old players left, and then a lot of those new players don't stay? That's where it gets awkward and where I would be concerned. Preston, did you have any final thoughts on this before we head to the next topic?
I'm trying not to be hypocritical because I've given them some leeway with Universes Beyond in the past. Like, I'm not the hater that a lot of people are, but I just don't want SpongeBob. I just don't want it. I don't care if I'm being grumpy old man.
Say that again?
I don't care if I'm being a grumpy old man about it. I just don't want SpongeBob.
Not that. I didn't hear
Yeah, you say he just doesn't want SpongeBob, which I get. I mean, you're not like even a SpongeBob hater, right? Like it just doesn't fit the game.
Well, I just never really cared for it growing up. I was never as big on it as other people, but
that explains a lot.
Well, to keep the Universes Beyond topic going, we got to talk about our look at 2025 at MagicCon. They announced everything that is coming in 2025. I don't know if it's literally everything, but all of the main sets. So as far as main sets, we'll run down these in order, and then we can break apart what they are and what it means. So we got Ether Drift coming in February. This is a racing set that's actually like Magic lore, so it's probably going to be a vehicle set. Hell yeah, I love vehicles. We know that Kaladesh is one of the involved planes, but there's at least a couple other planes. I don't know if that's announced yet, so pretty excited for that. Then in April, we're returning to Tarkir, which should be pretty exciting. It's been a while since we've been to Tarkir, so we should have some dragons. It's maybe going to be a 3 Colors Matter set, so should be pretty cool. Then we have the Final Fantasy set coming in June, and I think he doesn't mind that I say this. I was at an after party with one of the guys who worked on the set, and he said that it actually is going to have at least some cards from every Final Fantasy game. So if that's something you're worried about, it is actually going to have a little bit of everything from every game. Then we have Edge of Eternities coming in, September. That is going to be a space opera set. But so it's going to have like think Unfinity, but not goofy. Like that's kind of what it's going to be. Like there's going to be spaceships and aliens and stuff like that. But actually,
like a Star Warsy, Star Trek-y.
Yeah, but like the art, I don't know if you saw some of the art. It looks epic. So I'm actually kind of hype. Then we have the Spider-Man set. So Spider-Man gets his whole own set, which is actually kind of cool. If you guys remember from like a year ago, we had an episode where we're talking about Marvel when they first announced it, and I was like, they could just do a whole Spider-Man set. Like, there's too much stuff. So they're taking my advice and they're breaking it up into like multiple things, and then the last thing is
you were the sole reason that they made the Spider-Man.
Yeah, it's his fault. Get him.
Yeah. I'll expect my royalties.
Not his
check.
fault. Not
I'll
his
expect
fault.
my royalties. I'll
Man.
expect my royalty check from Wizards. And then finally, the last set, they don't have a release date yet, is another Universes Beyond set, full set, but they haven't announced what it is. All right, so there's a few noteworthy things about this, and then we can hop around and kind of freeform this. There's a lot to digest here. The few other things that are noteworthy are all 6 of these sets are going to be standard legal. Going forward, all main sets are standard legal. Because before it's been like some are modern legal, some are only standard, whatever. This is, instead of 4 standard sets and 1 or 2 modern sets a year, it's now just 6 standard sets a year. That's a lot of new standard. And then half of the sets are Universes Beyond. There's 3 Magic sets and 3 Universes Beyond. And noteworthy, because we got this new Universes Beyond that they haven't announced what it is yet, because of that, our Return to Lorwyn set that was supposed to come out next year, that people were hella hyped for, got pushed back to 2026. They're pushing Magic IP back to make more way for Universes Beyond. So there's a lot to talk about here. Let's start with anything. Preston, gut reaction. What is the first part of this that you think we need to talk about? There's a lot to say. What do you want to start with?
I'm so pissed. Like, I like both of those Universes Beyond stuff because they feel close enough to real Magic stuff. I don't want to be mad at them, and I don't mind the Universes Beyond sets, but do not make half of your product other people's IPs. That's just a terrible idea. Ugh. Why do they do this?
Yeah, I mean, do we feel like Final Fantasy and Spider-Man are okay? Like, I think we're, in general, Final Fantasy, sure, that's good, that makes sense, enough sense. Spider-Man, I feel like, I'm not sold on the superheroes thing. I think it depends on the hero and the setting and all that, but I think there's a way to make it work. I'm, like, Spider-Man, if it's a cool card, it's going to be, like, I'm cool with that. Not knowing what this last one is interesting, but Jason, any gut reactions on all of this?
My immediate first thought when seeing the release schedule for next year is 2026 better be loaded with Magic IP. It better not be one.
They said unless sales represent that they should do otherwise, this is going to be the new norm.
This is so unfortunate.
Well, like, ideally, Magic IP, Magic's intellectual property and their story and their characters would be awesome enough to carry the weight of the game by itself. And we could, like, sell off our IP to other games, right? Like, maybe we get Marvel to make a Magic comic book series, right? Like, maybe we do that kind of stuff instead of this other way around, where now we're the Fortnite of card games. But, like, that's just where we are because that's what's been selling, and that tells Wizards that they need to make more of it. And all 3 of us have said before that, like, Universes Beyond is very hit and miss. Like, some of it we think is like, why the hell did you do this? But on the other hand, there's a lot of stuff that we're like, hey, this is great. And ultimately, I'm okay with them doing this because I think, if I'm being honest, I think they can only do this for so long. I think after a few years, they're going to run out of S-tier Universes Beyonds to do, and they're going to have to start scraping the barrel. And hopefully by then, the Magic show will have come out, and maybe that'll get enough people interested in the story and the characters that maybe we can start focusing on actual Magic IP again. So I'll be slightly optimistic there, but realistically, that might not even be true.
Morgan,
and I mean,
you know what's going to happen? We're going to go back to IPs is the problem.
Okay, so
that's what's going to happen.
I think you're right. I think we can do that. I think we can. Like, they can do a Return to Lord of the Rings. If they don't do specifically Lord of the Rings, they could just do a Hobbit one. Or they can do, there's like an anthology thing, right? Like,
the Silmarillion?
Yeah. They could do stuff like that. So, I think you're right. They probably could just do that if they can make the right contracts and stuff.
Running out anytime soon.
So, okay, let's start with something positive. Let's start with go ahead, Jason.
Well, I don't know if this has any validity or not, but it could be that going away from so much Magic IP gives them a little bit more creative room to focus on the show. Instead of having to come up with new lore type stuff for each Magic set, they could just focus, putting that into making the Magic show really, really good, and so that when it comes out, it's really popular and enjoyable. So maybe that's, one reason why we're getting more Universes Beyond stuff. Final Fantasy, I think, makes more sense than Spider-Man does. I do have a personal bias. Spider-Man's my favorite, superhero. So I'm not exactly upset that they're making a Spider-Man set. I'll probably own every single card in that set. But is it appropriate for Magic to have a whole like Spider-Man Marvel themed set? Probably not. Like, if I'm just being objective, it's probably not right to have that in our game. But personally, I'm giving it a pass because I just love Spider-Man, and I think that there's going to be a lot of really cool and a lot of fun cards, and I can't wait to build a Spider-Man deck. Like they better have, in one of the card arts of Spider-Man, it better be Spider-Man with his mask off, and it better be Tobey Maguire. I swear to God, if he's not on one of these cards, I will riot.
So...
Well, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
So they probably won't.
It's basically all comic-oriented. I don't think any of it's movie-oriented based on what little we know. I think it's all...
One of the faces better look like Tobey Maguire.
Vaguely. It has to at least vaguely, maybe with plausible deniability for court, at least kind of look like Tobey Maguire. I'd be down for that. So I think that's a great point, though, Jason, is that, like, it's so hard to not sound like a hypocrite when we talk about this, right? It's so hard because on one hand, I really like Magic lore. I like Magic lore. I like the characters. There's some cool, interesting stories to tell. A lot of the worlds that they have created are cool worlds that I want to explore more. And we built the backbone of this game off of that stuff. And I love this game so much. So on one hand, I would much rather we just focus on Magic IP. But on the same time, I'm with Jason. Like, the good universes beyond, they're so pretty good. So I think at the end of the day, and I'll before we get into, there's a couple of more specific parts about this that I want to get into. So to kind of leave on a more positive note before we pivot, is that at the end of the day, I just want the game to be fun, right? Like, if we get to that, like, do you guys know Cardboard Crack on social media? They make like little like newspaper kind of comic strips, that are real quick, but they're all Magic oriented. And they made one where it's like, I summon my Mountain Dew to attack you with my Garfield the cat, like it's like, that's what Universes Beyond is going to be. And you know what? It's likely we're going to get there. But if the game itself is still fun, I'll accept it. I know some people aren't going to stick with it. I know some people are going to fall off and get sick of it. But I think if the game itself is still fun, I won't care too much in practice. So, leading into this, let's focus on the good thing. Go ahead.
The thing that kind of sucks... The thing that kind of sucks is that, I'm kind of in the same boat you are. I love this game. I love playing it so much. I have so much fun with it, and I like the lore, and I like the characters. So, Wizards, they pretty much got me by the cojones, and they're just like, we're just going to keep throwing this random stuff at you. And I'm like, I guess I'll keep buying it. I just want normal Magic stuff, but I guess I'll buy this. So, like, I'm not going to not play the game, So, there's really, as much as I complain about it, it's like, I'm probably still going to buy a lot of this stuff.
One more thing for the Universes Beyond. I do hope, in general, they stick more to what they're doing with the Final Fantasy and being, like, general with it than specifically, like, Spider-Man for Marvel. Because I feel like they've done a pretty good job of that so far with all the stuff they've done. Like, Fallout was not just Fallout 4 the set or Fallout 76 the set. This isn't Final Fantasy 7 the set. Because if they wanted to make the most money, that's what they would do. But they're actually trying to get people to like the product by giving you a full breadth of, like, what the IP is. So if they do more of it like that, that's at least a little better. Just don't keep doing Spider-Man the set. I don't like that as much.
I think my argument for why they could do that with Spider-Man is because there's so many compelling villains. Like, there's a lot of, like, Spider-Man specific villains. There's also different versions of Spider-Man. Like, he has all the different outfits and there's all the different time eras. So, like, I think Spider-Man specifically might be able to get away with it, but I do agree with your premise there. With that said, though, I would like to talk about something positive, which is that all three of these actual Magic IP sets, Aether Drift, Tarkil Dragonstorm, and Edge of Eternities, I'm excited for all three of these, all right?
I am too.
Ether Drift,
Going back to Tarkir is going to be cool.
oh my god, guys, it's going to be so epic. I love vehicles. I love artifact sets. I like the aesthetic, like some of the art that they've revealed. I think it's really fun. It pushes the boundary of what is normal Magic, but there's enough stuff there that we've already established with like Kaladesh and stuff that I'm like, all right, I'll bite. And then we also have Tarkir, dragons, the factions, the 3-color stuff. I'm here for it. I'm so here for it. And then Edge of Eternities, this is pushing boundaries in a way I really like. The art still looks very much like Magic, while also being reminiscent of like actual space operas. So all three of these sets I'm super hyped for. If you guys had to pick one that you are most excited for, what do you think it would be?
Tarkir.
Tarkir?
Tarkir Dragonstorm. I mean, Dragon go burr. You know what I'm saying, brother?
Sure
you know what I'm saying?
It's been a couple episodes since Jason's got to say this needs to go in Dragon. So, you know, when we do the best cards from Tarkir, he can say it about every card.
That's right. That's right, boy.
Without seeing any like cards or mechanics, I would probably go with Tarkir, but obviously once we start getting some spoilers 5 months in advance from the set, you know, my mind might change a little, but I mean,
you know they're gonna add drift as a mechanic in Ether Drift. It's gonna do something with vehicles where it's like drift whenever I don't know
when
exactly
this vehicle becomes
also,
tapped, do a thing.
Yeah. I also think it would be hilarious if they somehow snuck Vin Diesel into the set.
Oh my god. They're going to do a secret lair crossover. Like when they did the D&D set and they did the D&D movie secret lair to go with it. They're going to do with Ether Drift, they'll do like a Fast and Furious secret lair. Boom. We're making you money, wizards.
We called it. Yeah, I expect that royalty check in the mail now.
I actually think that my favorite one, again, this is without really knowing much at all, the one I'm most excited for might be Edge of Eternities, because outside of Magic and music, my next biggest thing I'm excited for all the time is Star Wars. I just love space opera and space fantasy, and I think that there's a way to do that in Magic that really, really makes sense. Like an example of that is Warhammer. Like Warhammer on its surface looks like sci-fi, and you're like, I don't understand how this is supposed to fit. But then when you get into the lore on why that stuff is the way it is, then all of a sudden it clicks and it makes sense as a Magic set. So Warhammer worked for me. I was hype about Warhammer. And I feel like the same thing is going to be true here with Edge of Eternities. And I think that has the potential to be like super, super cool, pushing the boundaries of what Magic can be, while also still very much feeling like Magic. So that's really exciting. With that said, does anyone have a guess on what that last Universes Beyond is for the end of the year? Does anyone have a guess? I think I have a guess. I think it's Star Wars. I think they're going to do it. And I think they're easing us into it with Edge of Eternities and Ether Drift. I think they are, because I know Star Wars just had its big card game release a year or two ago, and it's doing moderately well. So maybe it's a little bit of a conflict in interest, but it's a huge Universes Beyond that they wouldn't want to leak yet. They want to have a little bit of suspense for it. They're easing us into it with some of these other sets coming in the year, and they're obviously doing work with Disney because they're already doing the Spider-Man one. So I have nothing to base this off of. I don't have some insider leading information to me. I'm just saying it kind of might be Star Wars, and if it is, they can have all my money.
You make a good point, my guy.
Disney, but maybe.
I think that Star Wars would be cool. You know what I really wish that they would do? Do a Dragon Ball Universes Beyond, dude. Just do Dragon Ball. Like, I want to build a Goku deck. I want to build a Frieza deck. I want to build a Vegeta deck. That sounds sick.
I don't know much about Dragon
so
Ball.
Much.
Is that something they could do a full set out of, or is that more like a let's do 4 pre-cons?
There's Dragon Ball. There's Dragon Ball Z. There's Dragon Ball Super. There's so much content out there that they could throw into a Magic set. If you just do it as Dragon Ball, like the Dragon Ball franchise, then you could do Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Ball Super. I doubt if they did that they would do Dragon Ball GT, because I don't know that. Wait, is GT canon at this point?
No, but they're not gonna not do Super Saiyan 4.
Well, GT might be canon. I need to Google this.
It's not.
Well, I mean, it might be.
What about you? What about you, Preston? Any guesses on what the Universes Beyond is? And if you don't have a good guess, do you have something you hope it is?
I don't really have a guess.
So, like,
I mean, I could see the Star Wars, work with Disney for a little longer. I want a real Godzilla set. That's the main thing I want. I know the 4 precons you do with it too.
Listen, I know that when GT was first a thing, it was not canon because there was no manga for it. But Toriyama before he died, Toriyama supported GT, and he was a part of its like production. So, and it's like, I know that it's like commonly thought of in Dragon Ball fandom that Dragon Ball Super happens between Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball GT. So I don't know what the community actually thinks about it. I don't know if I would consider it to be canon. So I don't know if they would actually do it, but I don't know. That's just, and we're spitballing here. They're probably not going to do Dragon Ball anyways. That's just what I wish that they would do for this last Universes Beyond set. But I would not be upset with a Star Wars Universes Beyond. I am like you, Morgan. Take all of the money that I have and gimme.
I have never ever done the thing where I intentionally try to collect every card from a set. I've thought about doing it with Shadows over Innistrad and or Eldritch Moon because that's the set I started with. I'm very nostalgic about that set. I still get excited seeing that art. So I've thought about doing it for that set. But I've never done that before. If they do a Star Wars set, I will probably do it. I will probably try to have a full set of at least one copy of every card from the set because I just genuinely love Star Wars. And I think that there is probably a decent amount of overlap between Magic fans and Star Wars fans to the point where I think it's like Warhammer, where it makes more sense than you think it makes if you can get past some of the on the surface stuff. But I think it's also a good way to get people interested in the non-movie stuff, because part of what's so great about Star Wars, I mean, they are great movies. I like the movies, but the shows are great. And then a lot of the stuff that you get from the video games that are canon are great. And the books that are canon is good. So doing the Magic set gives an opportunity to, yes, obviously highlight the iconic scenes and characters from the movies that everyone knows, but then also lead people into finding some new characters or some new story beats and stuff that interest them, because that happened with Lord of the Rings. My Lord of the Rings knowledge was basically I like the movies, so if it was a person or a thing that wasn't in the movie, I didn't know what the hell it was. But then because of the Magic set, it got me interested, and I went out and learned more about just Tolkien stuff in general, but specifically Lord of the Rings. So that would be really cool to see. All right, one last thing. I didn't put it on the notes sheet, but I'm going to put Preston on the spot and ask him about this. So Preston, with the release of Foundations coming out, we are getting an update to how combat works. I read the article twice, and I only think I understand it. Do you care to clarify, because you seemed to understand what the change is?
Yeah, so right now, before the rules change, after you've declared blockers, you can cast spells. Before you start dealing damage and stuff. But they're going to get rid of that. That step, once you've declared blockers, you deal the damage. There's no more opportunity to react.
Yeah, so essentially, you would declare your attacks, the person would declare blocks, and then before damage actually happens, the person who's attacking you has to tell you how they're going to assign the damage. And then in that moment, you as the player who's blocking, you have priority, and you can cast spells and do certain things to either to save your creatures, or as the player attacking, before damage happens, you have a chance to boost your creatures or do whatever. And now, like Preston's saying, once blockers are declared, the damage just happens. No one gets priority. No one can cast spells. So if you're going to do any type of combat tricks, you have to do it before blocks are declared.
So I think the only obvious thing, right, is that if you're playing combat tricks, that now they're slightly worse on defense. Like, I don't think that matters. I will say I think that's a bit of a bummer, just because what is cool about combat tricks and what's cool about Magic specifically is you have all these opportunities to be sneaky. So I think it's definitely a bummer that we're losing that, but I think ultimately it probably doesn't really matter, right? Like this doesn't have any huge implications, does it? This doesn't like accidentally nerf something that is just like standard, right?
It just helps aggro a little more, because most of this is going to affect is the blocking side of things. And in general, most formats could use with a little kick to the rear in regards to speed. So that's the main thing. Also, I was a little wrong. You can do stuff after declared blocks, not after declared block order.
Oh, gotcha.
That's when you can no longer respond.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Well, guys, we did it. We did a news episode. We did a dedicated news episode. It's been a while since we've done one of these. We try to hit one or two news topics every now and then at the opening of our podcast. We rarely do these full news episodes, though. But let us know what you think. We enjoy, especially on weeks like this where we get like a ton of new information. It's good to kind of knock it out. So if you guys like this, let us know. We'd be happy to do more of this. Let us know in the comments. What are you guys most excited for? Are you actually excited for some of this Universes Beyond stuff? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Which of the upcoming sets are you most excited about? Foundations.
Also in the comments, tell us if you think GT is canon or not.
If you're a Dragon Ball fan, you gotta let us know. I promise you. And then,
hey, I am probably the biggest Dragon Ball fan here, and I promise you that there are people out there that consider it canon, and even Toriyama has supported GT. So if Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, supports it, what are you going to do?
Dragon Ball fans haven't read Dragon Ball, so I don't care.
That's fair, actually.
And then in either next episode or the episode after that, we'll be doing our top 10 favorite cards from Foundations, not reprints, just new cards. So if you are keeping up with previews and you have cards that you think we should make sure we talk about in that episode, you can also leave that in the comments. So thanks again for tuning into the Geek and Speak podcast. Again, like, share, subscribe, check out our other videos, follow us in our Discord. If you want to go the extra mile, go to Patreon, all that good stuff. We love you. We'll see you next week. Bye.